Hello everybody and welcome back to the Code Wrinkles channel for a first live stream in I guess 4 months. And the reason why I was running a little bit late is because, well, I got a little bit rusty with all this live streaming stuff and yeah, I had to reset up some things. So fortunately everything's okay right now. Please let me know if you can hear me well enough, or if I should tune down a little bit the background music or things like that. Just let me know, please. Okay, just looking at some stuff here, but it should be fine, I guess. Okay, so .NET 6 is about to be shipped in I guess 3 weeks or 4 weeks, something like that. And I have played a little bit with the new very hyped feature, which is the minimal API in .NET 6. And what I want to do today is, well, start working on let's say a real API or almost real API that that uses this .NET 6 minimal API hosting model, let's say. But of course, we want to start from a blank solution, so we'll also have to build a few domain classes. But what I want to do here is we'll also look into the minimal API, but my first opinion on it is that it actually is less opinionated than the full MVC, let's say, type of architectural pattern. And this allows us to do things a little bit different. It gives us a lot more freedom in the way that we design our endpoints and our overall application. And that's why I think that this is a very good point to also start building out APIs with the vertical slices architecture that Jimmy Bogart talks about for some years already. That was also possible, of course, with the regular ASP.NET Core Web API, but you still had to follow some standards, and it was very easy to actually get distracted from what actually vertical slices mean. And we really want to isolate each type of feature into a self-contained thing that knows everything about itself, and it doesn't really care about anything else that happens outside of it. And this is actually something very interesting, because my opinion is that it also allows us to basically get rid of two layers that we usually have in our applications, which is the services layer, or the use cases layer if you prefer the clean terminology, and the repositories. Because my opinion is, when we use handlers for each command and query that are really self-contained to a certain feature, it really doesn't make sense to use a repository, because you just get there in the handler all the data that you actually need. But let's get actually started, I would say. So first of all, let's build out the project structure. So I would add an existing project, and by the way, this code will be live on GitHub. I will share you the link afterwards, and you can then just fork or clone it and play around with it afterwards. If there's somebody that wants to build a UI for that, then well, be my guest. I would be more than happy. I'm really not a very big UI fan, even though of course I work also with Angular, also with React, the regular Razor views and things like that. So let's start. We need a class library first, and we call our platform. By the way, we want to build like the API for a blogging platform, and what I have in mind is actually Medium, where, well, we have a site where somebody can create a blog and then can write articles on that blog and things similar to that. So this is actually what we will try to model right now, and then expose, of course, via an API. Of course, right now, or at the beginning, we will have very few endpoints, but my plan is to also continue this series and build out this API well, step by step. Also, feel free to open issues on the GitHub repository to actually well, request new features or things, or suggest things that we might need to add to the API and things like that. Okay, so first, the application is called Thoughtful. So let's create our domain. So this will be Thoughtful domain. And we'll have the class library .NET 6 preview, of course, because we need .NET 6 in this case. And we'll also have to be careful when we install NuGet packages to also include pre-release versions, so that we can actually, let's delete this class, so that we can actually use all the new things in .NET 6 and everything that comes around with it, like Entity Framework 6 and similar. Good, so this would be then our domain. What we will still need is a data access layer, of course, so let's also add a project for that. It would be still a class library. And then we call it DAL from data access layer, and that should do it. And last but not least, let's create our API. And as I said, I guess that these layers are the only layers that we actually need. Of course, if we want to send email notifications, when we will then maybe create also a logging system and the logging abstraction, we might also add some a new layer for the infrastructure, but basically that's it. We don't have any repositories and we won't have any services that we usually have. So in this case, let's choose ASP.NET Core Web API. In this case, let's name it full.api. And here we'll have to choose, for instance, here you see this checkbox here, use controllers. So if you want to use the minimal API, you then just have to actually uncheck this, because otherwise you will use the regular controller-based hosting version of ASP.NET Core Web API in .NET 6. So in our case, we want to use the minimal approach, so we will uncheck this, and yeah, then we can click on create, I guess. Everything should be fine right now. So let's take a look first here in this API, because what you see here is that we actually have only one file. So we have only this program.cs file. So we don't have the startup.cs anymore. It's actually something that we actually don't need. And let me get rid of all these comments. And one problem that I already see, I guess, is, but we'll see how we can actually work around with that. I'm using Visual Studio 2022 preview version, of course, the community edition. So the idea here is that it's actually very, very simple. You see that we don't have any namespace definition here or class definition. This is because this is using that the top level statements where you don't have to provide a class. So in the class that is the entry point to a program, you don't have to provide anything else. You can just write some code and it will work. So you could just you can just write a console write line and it will print out something on the console. But that's actually a feature that's already in C# 8, I guess. So, or 9, sorry. So it's not really new to this .NET 6. It's actually, it was already there with .NET 5. But the idea is here that we have this builder and we create here a web application, and everything that we used to do in the startup class, we actually do here. Because here on the builder, we have the services, which is the service collection, and this is where we add our services, exactly like we did in the startup configure services. But in this case, of course, as we can see here is, well, it's here in the program.cs file. Then we actually build the app, so we get an app. So after we get the app, this is actually what we did previously in a startup configure method. So here is where we actually register our middleware. And here we have these two middleware registered and this one. And then we have already, as you can see here, this map get. This is very similar, I would say, to Express. We provide the endpoint and we can then here just provide a lambda in which we perform an action. And this means that when we make a request for this endpoint, then actually this method will be executed. And that's actually it. Then we run the application and that's pretty much it for the minimal API. So let's run it. Okay, we have a problem here. It's a project without, okay, sorry, of course. Yeah, let's go here to this and make our API as the startup. sorry for that. Let's apply and OK. And right now we can run it. Swagger is here added by default, so we can already use Swagger. But we'll see that actually defining metadata for Swagger is a little bit different here than in the other versions of the API. So here is the window on the other screen, and that's actually it. Let's actually also put a breakpoint. Let's have a breakpoint here, and then let's try this out. And we see that actually we hit the breakpoint, and we actually execute everything that we have here. In this case, we just generate some forecasts based on random numbers, and then we just return them, and that's it. So no, you don't need any method like that returns an iAction result or things like that. You can just execute a function or a method here, and that's it. By the way, minimal API, it doesn't mean, and we will see later, that it's simple or that well, it's too easy, let's say, but it just means that you don't have to add or write a lot of boilerplate code in order to run it. So that's actually the whole idea of this minimal API. So the thing that I see about this file is that this program.cs file would get very crowded very fast. So after we define our domain classes, I guess one of the first things that we will do, we look into a way in which we can refactor a little bit this this program.cs file so that it has as few code as possible. Because the idea is, if you'll be, or while you're building a real API, you would probably have to register here a lot of services and probably also middleware and things like that. So this would get very crowded, and especially if you want to add configurations to follow the iOptions pattern, for example, then you will have to also use a lot of stuff. Then a lot of the services that we add also require some further configuration. Like for instance, if you add authentication and authorization, so we will definitely have to move a lot of these things in some other files and keep everything here as simple as possible. So yeah, but let's actually start to build out our domain, and let's add here a folder. So I really won't concentrate on this domain or on building out the domain model. However, one thing that we would have to take into consideration is here, since we won't have any service classes anymore, this means that we will have to build out the rich domain model. So a lot of things that usually happen in the services will need to be in or directly built into our entities, and this is actually I would say a very good thing to do. Although in most projects I usually see very anemic domain model and not a rich domain model. So we'll definitely have a rich one. So let me then just start out. Let's create a first class. I guess let's start with an author. Let's also make this public. Now, what properties should authors have? Probably let's make it, or let's have an ID. Actually, you see that it's actually very easy in Visual Studio 2022 because you get a lot of suggestions. Actually, here you see that you also get a name. But what I want to do here is I want a public string first name. But of course, I also have to. Okay. Then we'll have here a public string. Here, one thing that you notice probably is that you get this this green underlines here, and this is actually because, yeah, we use here non-nullable or non-nullable reference types by default, which is actually a very nice feature on the one hand, but on the other hand, actually, well, it's something that we get a lot of warnings for. Of course, we can suppress these warnings, but for now, I guess we don't want to bother with it. What we could do to just simply get rid of it, we can make it explicit that the strings might be nullable or might contain null. Of course, we know that the default value for a string is null, but the whole point of nullable reference types and the whole use here is that we have a little bit more predictability whether something will be null or not, and it kind of like obliges us to also like from the class itself, from the constructor, to make sure that either we mark explicitly a certain reference type as nullable, or that we maybe should actually initialize it in the constructor or something like that. So in the end, it's not really a bad thing, I would say, but yeah, of course it could be a little bit annoying. I get here a question on Twitch. Do you plan maybe a series web API for total noobs? Actually, yes. And I guess I'll start next week. If you follow my YouTube channel, I have there a training series which is not ready yet, but I will finish it soon, which is called C# for total noobs. And in that one, actually, we take everything from zero. So people who never did programming before can start to take that training, and it's literally from zero. So it starts from really the beginning of programming with the idea of what the data type is and things like that. So I will start next week an ASP.NET Core for total noobs, which will start from scratch with an ASP.NET Core API at first, and then we'll go also into the views part of ASP.NET Core. But my idea was to make those sessions as live sessions. So yeah, just feel free to follow my YouTube channel. I will post with 1 or 2 days beforehand when I will do the first lesson, because I'm not sure yet, but I'll definitely do it. So thank you very much for asking. Okay, good. So what else could we have here? Maybe we can have here a full name, although I'm not sure if that is something that we would need here. And let's make this also nullable, full name, and this would be equal to, let's make it first name plus, we'll make it very easy right now, a string concatenation. I know it's not the best way to concatenate strings, but as I said, we just want to get started with this. Okay, what's all the problem with this? Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention the data type here. And this is the problem. And also have a typo here. I don't want a capitalized U. And I'm still having typos. Okay, right now everything is okay. Now, date time. We need a date of birth, maybe. Public date time, date of birth. Now, the idea here is in C#10, we have actually new data types. We have the date only data type and we have the time only data type. And that's actually very, very cool. And the first thing that I wanted to do here is, for instance, you can say here, for instance, date only. And that would be only the date part of the date, which is very, very cool from my point of view. So that's really something that we could use a lot. However, when I played around with it, I noticed that EF6 doesn't still support date only and time only data types when it comes to persisting them to SQL. So unfortunately, I'm not sure exactly when this will be supported, but I guess it will be. And until then, I just use a regular date time here. But actually, I'm very excited about these data types, these structs, date only and time only, because there is plenty of times, or I guess most of the times, you just need the date part for most of the things, and then still you would have to have the entire date and time, and then look only at the date part and do similar stuff. So date only and time only surely will make things easier. And let's add here another string. Let's call this bio, or something like a description for the author. And yeah, that's also optional. So let's also make this nullable, or explicitly make this nullable. We have an error here. Where, oh my god, I have put this nullable in front of or after the public. Oh my god, I'm not sure. So maybe Friday evening is not a good day for live sessions. But then when is a good day? Or which evening is good for that? So yeah, that's actually for our author. Let's actually then go to our blog, and we'll try to actually build it out. So a blog is actually, when you go on Medium, you can create for yourself a blog which will have a name, we might have a description, and then you can write articles that will actually belong to this specific blog. So that's actually what we will try to model here. So here, let's add this class, which will be called blog. Let's also make this public because we will need this. Good. Public. We get the ID. Here we will need a name because the blog will need a name. Public string description. Okay, so here the name and the description will be required. So I don't want to mark them as nullable. Then probably we would also like to know when that blog was created. Public date time created date. That's okay, but I don't want to use the date time now. And then we have somebody that actually owns it. So here we will have to configure a relationship between a blog and an author, because an author would well, and one author could be maybe, or could have several different blogs, but a blog could be held only by one author or owner. So yeah, let's try to model this relationship here, and we'll take advantage of conventions in EF for now. So we will have here an int. It would be author ID. Get set. And then, of course, we'll need the author itself, and the property will be called owner in this case. And but a blog could have also different other contributors that actually write articles on that blog, and those contributors are actually also authors. So here we need to model another relationship, and here is a one-to-many relationship because one blog could have different contributors, but also a contributor could or an author could contribute to several blogs, but we won't think a lot about the relationship right now. So for now, it's important for us that well, one blog could have several different contributors. So let's make here an iCollection public iCollection of author. It would be, in this case, contributors get set. Okay, and then we will also need articles in the blog. And actually, for the author, let's make this a really one-to-many. Let's create here a public iCollection of blog. In starting with EF5, it's actually very cool that you don't have, or that many-to-many relationships are also modeled by convention. So that's kind of cool, I guess. You don't have to go in the model builder and build out the entire relationship, except you want to customize it or to override the convention. So right now we are on the author, and here we have an iCollection of blog, and let's say here contributes or how should we call this property? Blog contributions, something like that, I guess, similar to the GitHub contributions. But then we would also need the article. So let's create here an article. Okay, and let's also make this public. Okay, just let me check if everything's all right. So I guess, yeah, I guess you're still seeing me and hearing me. Okay. Good. So where are we? We want to start to build out our article. Of course, we need the ID. I actually like Visual Studio 2022 very, very much. And then, oh, the suggestion, that's actually very cool. Yeah, I want a title for that. Let's see. Does it give me another suggestion? No. What I would say is we could have also a subtitle to an article, and then we would definitely have a body. And I don't want to mark those as nullable because I really want to have some a title, a subtitle, and although the subtitle is not mandatory, but the title and the body, those should be mandatory. Now, of course, for each article we need also the author of the article. And it's not necessarily the owner because it could be one of the contributors of that. So let's model this relationship: public int author ID. Okay, and then we will need the author itself. Public author, and it's the author of the article, so that should actually be okay. Now, what we also need to hold here as an information is the date created and last updated, because you might want to do updates to your article. So public date time okay, and then public date time last updated. Okay, then maybe we'll have some other properties: public int number of likes, and then number of shares. Public int whatever. Probably in later sessions we can build this model out to be more rich than that. But there is only one thing that I still want to have, like a blog or an article. Usually also belongs to a certain category. Or it could belong to several different categories based on what the author chooses actually to have a category. So in this case, we would also need another class for a category. So let's add a new one. Category, let's make it public once again. Now for the category, I guess that should be actually something very, very simple. We would need an ID first, then would probably need a name for the category, and we'll need an optional description for that. If somebody wants to provide a string description. And then of course we have to model once again a many-to-many relationship, because an article could have several categories, but a category could also belong to several different articles. So in this case, public I collection of article, and here we'll hold the articles that belong to this category. Then of course in article would have an I collection of category. Public I collection of category get set. Of course, I guess we forgot to give a name here. And here let's categories. It should be like this. Okay. And then I guess one other thing that I would like to do here is go once again through all these classes, and also let's use the default constructor for now for most of them, because what I want to initialize the things that that really need at least the collection. So here we'll have categories, new list of article, but it's not article category, it's no list. Here we are category. Okay, and the properties that actually are not although we actually won't use the constructors, because when we go for a rich domain model we usually use factory methods to create instances. So yeah, we'll look into that maybe a little bit later. For now, let's just make sure that we have the collections that we need, even if they are empty at the beginning. And here we have these blog contributions. New list of blog should be, sorry. Okay. That should be here. And then I guess that's the only collection that we have here. So let's go here. Here we have this I collection of contributors. So let's add this. But it's not a list of contributor, it is a list of author. And I guess we don't have anything else right now. This one. Okay, so I see here a question, so that's great. Can't wait to release it. Thank you for this preview. Now so going to turn out. Okay, yeah, I'm great. I'm great, or I'm very happy that that you think that this is great. But we'll go just in a few minutes over to the API, and we'll do only the API, and you'll see that it's even greater. I would say. There's only one other thing that we would have to do here, is then just to create a DB context. But for that, we'll go in the data access layer, and then we'll go over to the API itself. So here we have these articles. New list of article. And that should do it. Good. Okay. So let's now go here in the data access layer, and let's actually first install manage NuGet packages. So here I'll have to use this NuGet, and I would have to use the include pre-releases, because I would look for pre-releases for entity framework. In this case, Microsoft.entity framework core. Here we have this latest pre-release, which is this one, RC2. I guess that should be okay. I accept. Then what we also need is the Microsoft entity. We need SQL Server. Also, let's install this pre-release version. So I accept. Good, and then I guess we'll also need the tools. Okay, also the pre-release seems to be okay. Okay, good. So let's go then here. We can just remove this class. I would like to create a new one from scratch, and that would be here. Thoughtful DB context, or let's call it context, or DB context, to make sure that we refer to the DB context, not to other type of contexts that we might have. So public class thoughtful DB context, and of course this should then inherit DB context, and of course we'll need to add using here. Using Microsoft Entity Framework Core. Of course, that should be it. Let's create a constructor, and here we take in, it's a regular DB context, DB context options, and here we pass this to the base, and that's actually it. And let's just create DB sets for our entities, and I guess we would be good to go. So let's have here a public DB set of which is the first one, article. We'll have probably to add the reference to thoughtful domain. In this case, that's okay. However, I have recently created a video about how to build up a project structure for a standard end-layer application. The most common of project structure that you will see, and then there I pointed out, and I just want to emphasize it also here. When we think about the layers, the domain layer is the only one that should not depend on any other projects here. This should be really at the core of the application. Okay, so we have articles get set. Okay, then we have public DB set of category. Kind of actually like Visual Studio 2022. Now it doesn't give me another suggestion, because it gave me the suggestion for the category. I want the author, though, would be authors get set, and then I would have one DB set of blog, I guess. That would be called blogs. Okay, so we have DB context. So we are kind of actually set up with that. So we can actually move here to our API because we want to do a migration. And in order to do a migration, we actually need to configure here the connection string. So let's connection strings, and let's have one default, and I have the connection string here somewhere because I have created a database previously. It's a regular database in SQL Server Express that comes with Visual Studio, so nothing fancy with that. So in this case, we have this. Let's then maybe go here to our program.cs, and we need to add the DB context. And as said, here in the minimal API, kind of on this builder, we have the services, and here is where we would actually do that. So yeah, here's where we would actually do this. And let's make here builder, then add, but we have to add the packages here also. We have to add our packages here because otherwise that won't work. Okay, so what we would need here is dependencies, management, get packages. Once again, pre-release. Microsoft Entity Framework Core. I guess we need here only the entity framework core and the tools, I guess. Okay. So let's install that. I guess we also need the SQL Server because we have this use SQL Server. So let's install also the SQL Server for that. This would be this one. Let's see if there are any other questions. No, seems that not. Okay. Okay, I'm just looking right now at the stream if everything is okay, but it seems it is. And yeah, it seems you're still here, so thank you very much for that. Good, let's click on accept here. Okay, and this should actually do it for which packages already need updates. No packages found. Maybe the swashbuckle. Which one actually needs update? This one. Okay. Let's keep this version for now because I'm fairly sure that this version works. So right now, when we are in a pre-release phase, versions are a lot of times fairly messed up. So if you know a version that works, then just use that. Okay, and here, sorry, here we would have that adds DB context method. Sorry, on services. Okay. I forgot about the services, of course. And here, why don't I see? Okay, let's try to using Microsoft Entity Framework Core. Still not there. But that actually it's underlined because we need to provide, of course, the options for that. Of course. Okay, and the DB context, of course, this is generic. So it would be how it's called, full DB context. Here I would probably need to add another package reference, correct? Which is okay. Yeah, and now that's a total different thing. And now, of course, we need to take here the options. And let's go on another line here and have options.use SQL Server. And here, you know that in the startup file, you have that field, which is the configuration. And that has actually the configuration that you can use to read, for instance, from the app settings file. Now here we don't have this this property, but this builder, let's see here, if we click builder, so we see that it contains actually a lot of information, or a lot of points that we can actually use or configure further. We have the services, which is the iService collection, but we also have the configuration. So we can just actually access the configuration directly from the builder. And in this case, we can see configuration dot, and it should have get the connection string, I guess. Yep, it should have it. And it should be the default, because that is how we have called. And that's it. We have actually added our DB context right now. So from this point of view, everything should be okay. So let's run a migration to make sure that we have everything in place. Just need another drink. Okay. So yeah, let's add migration initial. Fingers crossed that I don't get any errors from Entity Framework. I would hate to do some troubleshooting on Entity Framework right now. And of course, things couldn't be that easy. Unable to determine the relationship represented by navigation author blog contributions of type I collection of blog. Either manually configure the relationship or ignore this property. Okay, let's look once again. So we have here an author which has an I collection of blog, which is the blog contributions. And then on blog, we have an I collection of author, which is contributors. Okay. But I'm not sure exactly why this happens. So theoretically, Entity Framework should be able to determine that it actually needs to create a many-to-many relationship, because here we have here one of them, and then here we have this one. Okay, you know, let's not concentrate on this right now. Let's just assume that well, that's it. Once you are a contributor to one blog, that's actually it. Okay, and then we don't need this list anymore. And let's run it again. Yeah, it happens always live. Okay, your target for thoughtful domain doesn't. Of course, yeah. Of course. Let's try it once again. Yep, now it created the migration for us. To be honest, I won't look exactly what we have here is. Let's just update the database. Update database. As I said here in this session, I'm more worried, or I want to look more at the API itself. So that's it, done. We have the database. We have added it to our minimal API. So I guess from this point of view, we are actually good to go right now. Okay, so what's actually next that we would like to do? Actually, one interesting thing that we have here is the global using statements as a feature of the language. So let's add here what we have in properties. We have this launch settings.json. I wonder if I would like to put that in properties. You know what? Let's create just here at this level new class, and we'll name this class global usings. And the cool thing about this class is, because you don't have to actually need any namespace here, you can define global usings for the entire project. And that's actually cool, because if you have packages that you know that you will use a lot, then you can just add them in that global usings, and by doing it this way, you actually make sure that you get that you don't have a lot of usings at the top of each page that of each class. So let's using system, and let's have using Microsoft.ASP.NET Core dependency. Where is it? It's on extensions. No? No. Or did I do a typo here? Is this package not by default here? It's Swagger. Microsoft ASP.NET Core app. Okay. But what do we have here? Let me check once again here in this program. Services. This is okay. You know what? Let's do it like this. Let's take this entity framework from here and let's move it into the global usings. Okay. And the cool thing is, okay, it should have worked. I don't want to have, let me go here. Sorry, I forgot of one very important thing. We have to mark those as global, of course. Global using and global using. And see that it's already white. So this means that if we go back here, you see that everything still works. So once again, with global usings, you can define usings that you use throughout your entire applications. And then you don't have to add them in your code classes anymore. The only one thing is that works for installed packages, so it doesn't work for package references. So we still need to have to keep here a reference to our thoughtful data access layer, and we can't simply move it into the. Although let's try. So last time I played with it, it did that. This was not possible. So let's try it once again, and it's still not possible. Of course, we still have this error here. So yeah. So if you have references to other packages, then putting them in the global usings actually won't help a lot. So yeah, in this case, that's actually it. So we have right now this global usings, which is fairly cool, I would say. Could I have a brief description of what happened till now? So yeah, we actually want to build a minimal API in which we model a very, very basic blogging platform. Until now, we just we have just well modeled our domain with 4 different entities, a very, very basic data access layer with a DB context, and right now we are actually trying to actually create the endpoints that we want for this minimal API. And we have added the DB context to the minimal API and ran a migration and updated the database. So that's actually what we did till now. Good. Okay, so right now we have here this map get, which actually, and let's try to refactor this. So when we have an app get for API authors, what I want to do here is we can actually make this async, and we can actually inject here things that we need. And here what we would need is the thoughtful DB context. Thoughtful DB context, let's call it context. So this is injected via dependency injection. So it's exactly the same way that you can inject in the constructor of your controllers. You can actually inject here in this lambda that you provide in this map get method. And that's actually very, very cool. And of course, right now, this has an underline because we have marked this as async, but we don't have an await for now. So let's make this very easy. Return await context. So this should be for authors, and just a to list async. Okay. This should be it. Good. And let's also add another endpoint here. Map post in this case. But then we'll see that this would be a little bit more complicated. And this is also the reason why we will go into the refactorings and go to the vertical slices architecture and move everything out of this program.cs class. So we would have an endpoint API authors, but with the post method. And then here It's exactly the same. We can mark this as an async. Here we can, for instance, have once again thoughtful db context. And one more thing that we can inject here actually is, you know, in controllers, for instance, for posts, you can just you can just define a parameter for your action, and that will actually map to the body of the post request kind of automatically. So this is exactly what we can do here. But what is the problem here with all those errors? Type or namespace definition and okay, I'm not exactly sure. So I guess we are missing. No, we are not missing anything. Because it's exactly, let's give it or with. No, it doesn't. Okay, let's serve the HTTP post request. And here we'll have to specify the pattern and the delegate. And that's exactly what we try to do here. So this is the pattern. And that's actually, that should be exactly the delegate. I guess it's because of this one. No. Still red. Okay. So, why is this still red? Only assignment call. Let's also delete this one. Okay. So it was just a case of having the comma here. Okay, good. So, yeah, thank you very much, Mohammed. It was the comma. Indeed, thank you very much. Good. So, I said here we would need to map to something. The width, yeah, I wanted to add this width name, and we'll get into why we need to add this type of descriptions just in a minute, but it should also work without it. But of course the width was not completed, so this was one of the reasons. But we also need, as said, to map here to something that comes from the body. And here, as said, we want, let's have here also for now an internal record. Let's call it author DTO. And here we can simply say, for the author, what do we actually need? We need a string first name, string last name, string bio. What else do we have for the author? The full name is something that we will calculate. The date of birth, but here date of birth, that's a typo. So first name, last name, bio, and date of birth. That's actually everything that we need. So we just use a record for that. So here we have then date, time, date of birth. Okay, so in this case we can just say here that map the body actually to our author DTO, and this is the author. So here then in the body of this anonymous function of this lambda or this delegate, we can just perform our action. So we have to transform this author DTO in an author, but we'll use Automapper for that just in a matter of minutes. But for now, let's just see if this actually works. So let's have here a var author. Let's make this DTO, because we'll have a clash new author, but it's not author DTO, it's author. Of course, we would have to add the reference or domain for that, which is cool and okay and expected. And then we can just simply assign properties. Author.id, it should be author DTO. first name. Okay, then author dot last name. Okay, author dot bio equals author detail dot bio, and then author dot date of birth equals author detail dot date of birth, and this should be okay. For date of birth we could use date only data type. Yes, and I have talked actually about the date only and the time only structs in C#10. However, the problem is that Entity Framework is not yet able to support them. Even if I use the EF6 versions that are in pre-release right now. I actually tried to do this actually when I worked on playing with this 1 week ago. And in fact, I have also found an official statement that date only and time only are not yet supported, but they will probably be supported with the release. So yeah, I guess we'll have to wait for that. But the reason why I have chosen here date time is in order to be supported with EF, because date only and time only unfortunately didn't work. But yeah, I said back when we talked about this date only structs and time only structs that I think that these are some very cool features or some very cool new structs in C#, because most of the times in my projects personally where I use date times, most of the times I'm actually interested only in the date part, and this actually makes it easier for us to just work with a date part or a time part, and maybe also calculate spans and things like that. So yeah, that's true, but unfortunately it doesn't work for now with EF. Hopefully it will soon. Good. So right now, so that we have this author, we can just simply then say context.authors.add, and we add the author. Then await context save changes async, and that's okay. And for now, we'll see that we can also return different response types, but let's just return the author for now. That's it. So let's see if this actually works. So we have a endpoint for getting the authors, and we have another endpoint for creating an author. So I guess we could test both of these right now. So let's run that. Okay. So we have here the post. Let's try it out. Here as first name. Let's make here a John Doe. Bio. And let's have this date time right now. So execute. And hopefully we don't get any errors. We got an error. Okay. An error occurred by saving the entity changes. See the inner exception. Invalid column name, date of birth. Okay. But why? Okay. Because I have changed that property name. Let's add a new migration for that. I have changed the property name, so we have add the migration, correct DOB typo, because this needs to be upgraded to the database. Right now it has, see, we have a rename column which is actually correct, and update database. Build started. Okay, done. Good. Let's run it once again. And I would expect it right now to work. Okay, so let's try it again. Try it out. Let's have a John. Let's have a Doe here. Bio, whatever, and the date from today. Execute. let's hope for a better luck right now. And indeed, we have a 200 and we see that that should be here. Let's try also the get endpoint right now. Try it out, execute. So right now we should have one author, and this is indeed the case. So as we see, as a basic proof of concept, this minimal API is just working. And the only thing that we have done is in this, sorry, let's close this migration. We have actually done everything here in this program file. So if you are familiar with Node.js, that's really very, very similar on how you would do everything in Express. You can have everything here in the entry point of the application, and it actually works. Dependency injection works, configuring services works directly on the builder, on the service provider. We can even add the middleware, as we have seen. We can bind or inject, or this is actually not an injection, but we can actually bind to a post body here directly to a record, which is fairly cool. I like records a lot, by the way. For working with this type of DTOs, they are actually great from my point of view, records. That's everything that you have to write, and everything else is actually taken care of. One thing that I want to do here is let's get rid of this weather forecast thingy that we still have here. We also don't need this anymore. And yeah, we have these authors and we have this post, and it actually works. Good. So what I would like to do right now is I would need a small break. So I will go on a very, very short break for 10 minutes, and then we will come back. And I hope that you would still be here, because after the break, what we will do is actually very, very interesting. Right now, we have a minimum viable working API in .NET 6 minimal API. But what we want to do already, this file has a lot of code, and you can imagine how messy this could actually get. So afterwards, what we will do is we will go into moving everything out of this file, and we'll go into the concept of how you can create feature modules actually in this .NET 6, and each module should be actually self-contained. Then we will also have some way to automatically register modules in the application. Without the need to register each services one at a time, we can just discover modules and register them with everything that those modules actually need. And we'll also go on through Automapper and MediatR, because as said, we want to go for this vertical slices architecture in which everything is a command, a query, and is handled by a handler. So we will use MediatR also, and of course we'll use Automapper to map from DTOs to our domain models. So yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to actually move everything out of this file and do some proper refactoring of this API in a vertical slices architecture. So yeah, that's actually what. And there is this question, could you let me know what line 25 which name is added for? We'll go into that because we'll talk a little bit about Swagger, and we'll see that we have there different other things. But very, very shortly, this is one way to describe for Swagger what information it should actually look for when it would create the documentation. Because here we can't simply use data annotations attributes that are specific for Swagger, but we can specify them here. We have then a produces method and things like that. We will go into that when we move our endpoints into dedicated files, and then we can configure each endpoint with all the features that it actually needs. So we'll go also into that after the break. So yeah, 10 minutes break. I can promise you it won't be longer than that, and then we can continue to refactor this with a more I would say production ready architecture from my point of view. Okay, I am back again. So you're still here. Thank you very much. Let me just check if everything is okay with the stream. It seems like it is. Okay, let's move then a little bit forward. Good. So let's start by cleaning a little bit up here. So what I want to do right now is to actually move everything away from here if possible. And if we are looking a little bit onto how we can move things around here, is we see that we have these common service registrations that are actually something that we can extract in one single extension method, for instance. And then we have all these type of middleware registrations that we can extract in another extension method on the web application. So an extension to the web application class. Then we'll have these two endpoints that will move actually in an authors module. And here then we have this DTO that we will also kind of move in the same module, and we'll organize our project. So when it comes to the folder structures based on features, something very similar to what we usually do in front-end frameworks like Angular and React. But that's actually what this whole idea of vertical slices means. So let's start with it. Let's add a new folder here. This will be called extensions, and here actually we'll put some extensions that are I would say general purpose. So what we could do here is, let's have here a class. Where is it? Class. And let's name this service collection extensions. So we will need for this a static class for extensions methods. And for now, actually, I guess we'll have only one. This public static. It will return the iService collection, of course. And let's call it here add application services. And of course, we'll need here this dot iService collection. Sorry, without a dot. And let's call this services. Okay, and then we'll return services. But then what we can actually do here is we can go here in the program file and actually move all these type of services out of here into our class. But here we also need the web application builder. So we will need, yeah, that's no problem. I would say web application builder, and let's call it builder. Now everything should be fine. Of course, here we will need another using to our data access layer, and this should be good to go then. And here in this program, yeah, we still need the data access layer because we need those here. But instead of having a lot of different services, we can just do builder.services.add application services, and we pass in the builder to it. And using .tool API extension, and that's it. So, and right now, what we can do is actually that each time we will need to register a service, instead of doing this directly in this program file, we'll do this here. So this is how, or the first step, how we'll keep everything clean in the program.cs class here. So we got rid of all the services, which is a good thing to do. And now we have to get rid of all these middleware registrations that we have. And for that one, we'll create a web applications extension. So let's add a new class. So and actually the refactoring that we are doing right now is something that you could also use on regular ASP.NET projects. Because the problem in regular ASP.NET projects is that for real applications, the configure services method in the startup.cs class gets very, 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 very big. And what I like to do when on the applications that I work on, usually you register services from a lot of different layers, from the infrastructure and from the domain service layer or use cases layer. So in this case, what I would like to do is to have simply, or that each layer exposes such an extension method that registers the services and the configuration that it needs. So in the startup.cs class, in that case, instead of registering each service, you just call the extensions of each layer that would do the service registration. And this is a way to also keep the startup.cs class clean in regular ASP.NET Core projects. But also let's make this class static. And here, what we'll actually need is, another one, public static, and we'll return a web application. And here, let's call this configure application. And here, as said, this would be on this web application, an extension of the application, and then we can just here return the app after we have configured it. And theoretically, what we could do, of course we need a variable name for that. What we could do right at the beginning, right now, is actually, you can see that this map get and map post, they are also on this app. So what we can do right now is that we can move everything here actually in this extension method. So let's just take it out from here. Let's move it into here. And everything should actually continue to work. Of course, we need here a reference to the data access layer. And I guess we still have an error somewhere. We have here, we need using to our domain. Okay. And if we go back to the program.cs, you see now that we can actually get rid of those two, not needed anymore. And you see that how messy our program.cs file was and how clean it is actually right now. We can actually even move this one from here. Although, I guess that wouldn't be that easy because we would have to mark that also as but it should still work. We don't have any errors. And right now our program class, we have just 9 lines of code right now in our program.cs. So I would say that this is a pretty successful refactoring. How messy it was before and how clean it is right now. But of course, we would also here app dot how was this method called? Configure application, and that's it. So if we run the application right now, it should work exactly the same way that it worked previously. So let's run it. By the way, whenever you have questions or you want to say something, just feel free to use the chat. I am really excited when we get a conversation going. So yeah, we have this Swagger. Let's test only one of the endpoints to make sure that everything works, but it should work. Oh, or okay, it just took a little bit longer. Execute, and we see that we get this author that we have created previously, so it works. So we have done a successful refactoring. Now the next step is, say we have here, we really want to get this as said, fully into vertical slices, and so we have features, and each feature should be self-contained. It should contain a module that should register all the services that it needs. It should I don't know, register all middleware that it needs, all endpoints and things like that. And this idea of working with modules it actually comes not out of the box, but as you will see, it's actually very, very easy to implement the idea of modules. So, and we'll even try to build a mechanism that would automatically scan for modules and register them. And we'll see how this would work. So let's start to set this up first. So we'll need a new folder here, and it would be abstractions. And it's directly into the project because this is something that relates to the entire application, not only to a subset of features. So it's actually something that actually belongs to the entire application. So let's add a new class here, actually an interface, and let's call it IModule. Public interface IModule. And here we'll have actually two methods. So we want that each module, when we want to register it, we want that it would be able to actually register all the services that it needs, to map the endpoints that it needs, and of course to also register, if needed, any application middleware. So in this case, I would say we can expose two methods here: web application builder. Okay, and let's call this register module, and it will get a web application builder. So this method should then simply return the builder after it configures it the way that it actually needs. And then we need to map the endpoints. And here we have endpoints in the minimal API are exposed to the interface IEndpoint route builder. Map endpoints. And then we would return the same. Okay, so that's that should mostly do it. So now we have defined this interface for what actually a module should do. Now, one other thing that we could do here is we could write some extension methods to register the modules in our applications. So let's go back here to this folder of extensions. And sorry, but I don't want a new folder. I want a class here. Sorry for that. So let's go back here. By the way, can you still hear me? Is everything okay? Seems to be okay, I guess. Good. So let's create here a new class then. And let's call this class and we'll see that we would need to make this class static because we would have extension methods in it. And first of all, here what we would need is a private field that would hold the list of the entire modules. all the list of all modules that we discover in our application. So let's have here a private static read only. That's what we want. But then I want to have a list of IModule, and we can just simply initialize it to a new list so that we don't have an empty list here. But no, not like this. I want to do this with the using. Okay, but why is here no? Okay, let's see if we can add this to the global usings. So it would be global using would be extensions. No, I guess you can add only packages to the global usings. Okay, so let's go back to the module extensions and let's try to add it manually, because I'm not sure why IntelliSense doesn't allow me to do this using thoughtful API extensions. Okay. But it's not extensions, it's abstractions. Sorry. Okay, good. So it works now. And this would be new list of IModule. Yeah, so that would be for the private field. Good. Thinking right now. Of course, we need to give a name to this field. Oh my god. Let's call it modules. Okay, so let's try once again to move this to a global using to see if it works. It works. We are here on the module extensions. Yeah, it works. That's kind of cool. So we can keep everything clean. Isn't a global extension, it should be like thoughtful API extensions. Yeah, but it should be not in the extensions, it should be in abstractions. Because the interface is in abstractions. The class is in extensions, so it was yeah, I wasn't careful enough. But it kind of works with the global usings right now, so that's kind of cool. Okay, then what I want to do here is first add a private method here that would actually discover the modules and put them in this field here, one by one. So let's have here a private, and it would return an IEnumerable of IModule. Okay, we don't need anything here. Of course, we need to give it a name. This cover modules. Okay, so in this case, we will do some magic here. We'll use reflection to actually look or scan this assembly for classes that implement the IModule interface, and then we can create instance of those classes using the activator in reflection, and then of course we can cast that to an IModule and add it to the list. So what we'll do here is let's say return and let's type of IModule, and on the assembly I want to get types, and then I want a where. Cool that you actually can combine the power of link or link you with abstractions. And here, for instance, I'm looking for a module where module is class, and very important is that module is assignable to an IModule. So this is how we actually check which classes implement this IModule interface. Okay, good. And then we can run a select and use the activator to create an instance on each of them. And last but not least, we can cast them on IModule. And this should work right now. Okay, good. So right now, what's the problem? This cannot declare instance members. Of course, we need it to be static, because we are in a static class, because it holds extension methods, and yeah, that should be it. Now let's implement then these two extension methods that we need. So the first one would be public web application builder, because it will return the builder register modules this dot web, sorry, it's not dot, it's web application builder, and we'll just return the builder at the end. But until we return the builder, we actually need modules equals discover modules. So right now we have a list of modules. Okay, what is the problem here? Is not null here. Okay, but why is this red? Okay, doesn't match target type list of IModule. Okay, so we have here a IEnumerable. Yeah, but I wouldn't like to call to list, because list is already an IEnumerable. So we return here an IEnumerable of IModule, and list is already an IEnumerable. So the problem here is with something with a nullability check somewhere. So let's look into it. Nullability of reference types in value of type IEnumerable. IModule doesn't match target type of IModule. Okay. But if we make this nullable, that doesn't really change anything in this case. In my opinion, that's purely a problem with some nullable reference types here. Module is not null here. Yeah, and I want static read-only field cannot be assigned to except in a static constructor or a variable initializer. Okay, but this method is also static, so that's kind of like a strange thing. So list of IModule, and this returns an IEnumerable. Will this maybe change something? Still no. So the idea with the list Yeah, with adds range. Yeah, but theoretically this already returns the IEnumerable, so we are actually not iterating through it. Let's see. So we get the type. We check if it is a class and if it is assignable to IModule, and then we create an instance for that and we cast this to an IModule. So remove read. Oh my god. Oh my god. Yes. I'm so accustomed to use read-only that yeah, can't simply convert from type IEnumerable of IModule to list. But okay, but once again, let's add a cast here, but theoretically this shouldn't be needed. Okay, what's the problem here? Here this should be static, of course. And if it is static, okay. And it still doesn't work. Okay, here I guess if I do a to list, still doesn't work. So we have here a list of IModule, IEnumerable of API abstractions IModule to system collections generics, still the same. Okay, let's use the explicit cast and let's see if that works. Because I'm really not sure exactly. Yeah, I used to list, but that actually didn't change a lot. So let's actually try to work this further. So let's have here a for each, and here for each module in modules. We know from the IModule interface that each module has this register module and this map endpoints method, and we'll simply invoke those methods. That's actually the whole point of that. So we have here a module.register module, and we'll have to pass in the builder in order for this to be registered. And then, you know what? I know what the problem is. I guess I'm too tired. So, the idea here is that we here actually return an IEnumerable, so we can iterate through it afterwards. But then, actually, when we do the for each, we actually execute it. But that's actually yeah. I didn't want to change it to a list. I wanted to keep it as an IEnumerable to adhere to this certain interface. But list is actually it implements the IEnumerable interface, so that should have or yeah, it should have been possible for that. But yeah, let's try to make it like you suggested. So it have but in this case we have to call this to list, and here modules equals discover modules, and in this case module is a list of IModule, and yeah, that should actually work. Good. And then we return the builder. And then what we could also do is we need another method for the endpoints. Yeah, ilist or list. Yeah, ilist would be the interface. List is the implementation that it wouldn't really change a lot. Public. Let's add also the other one. Public static. This one would return a web application. Let's call it map endpoints, and this would be on an extension method on web application, not on the builder, and it would be then, let's call it app. And here what we can do is, once again, for each var module in modules, we can then just use module.map endpoints. IModule. Let's, yeah, we should pluralize that because it's several different endpoints that we could use. So module.map endpoints. There is no argument. Of course, because we have to provide the app. That's why we have this. And then we have here return app. So everything should be okay right now. So right now what we do here in these register modules, we should actually discover all the modules, and then we should run the register method for them. And then for all the modules, we should actually also map the endpoints, and that should be okay. So what we could do here then afterwards, we can go back to our startup class. Sorry, in this case, you see how accustomed I am with the startup class in ASP.NET Core. In this case, it's the program class. And what we could do here is simply we could do here builder dot register modules, and of course we need to okay, that should be it. And when we have the application, what we could do here is, after the configure application, we can simply say app dot how did we call map endpoints. So we have mapped everything, and this theoretically should register the services for our modules and then also map the endpoints for that. So this should be the setup. In map endpoint, don't we need to initialize module discover modules? Theoretically, no, because as this is a static class, which means that we have theoretically well, globally accessible variables for this class. Theoretically, we call this method first, and as we give value to these modules, this should have the exact same values for the modules when we call this method afterwards, because it's static. Actually, it doesn't get disposed. That's actually the whole idea of statics. So that's at least the theory. Let's try to implement an author module and see if it actually works. But I guess it should work. So my guess is that it should work since everything is static here. Okay, so let's create then a new folder here, and let's call this features. And here we will have another subfolder that will be called author. Now for the author, what we will do here is we will actually first start with a module for the author. So let's create a new class here, and this would be author module. Just to make sure that it is really a module, it will also implement IModule, which is actually very, very interesting. So what we actually do here is we need to also provide an implementation for those two methods, implement interface. Now, what exactly we should do here is, well, in map endpoints, of course, we have to map the endpoints that we actually want. And then what we want to do for a register module is add services that are specific for this module, or even actually resolve services that we might need in this module. So right now, I guess we don't need any exact service here, except maybe, but that one we already have. It's the thoughtful DB context. So in this case, in the map endpoints is what we can move from here. So this app map get and map post. So actually that's what we can move from here. So let's where does it? Okay, so we don't need a return right now, we just need these two ones. So let's simply remove them from here because we don't need them. And let's go to our author module, and in map endpoints, let's add them here. Let's then also return how did we call it? Not app, but app endpoints. Okay, so in this case we have to change this because, and here we need a thoughtful DB context as using. Here we will also need endpoints. Then we also need the author DTO here. So let's go here and just move it. But you know what? This could actually be in a dedicated class. So the whole idea is that when we have a feature, everything that belongs to that feature should be actually in that specific folder. So in this case, we can just simply add here a new class, and let's call it author DTO. And of course, it won't be actually a class, but it will be our record. Oh, sorry, not this one. So where are we here? Okay. So let's go to our author DTO and just move this here. Could even be, oh, private, not in this case, but if we would add a nested class to the author module, we could even make this this private. So then we have the author module, we have the author DTO, which is okay right now. And then we have, what is your problem here? Okay, so what is, can be simplified. Yeah, but I have an error here. Okay, they want me to use an object initializer, but why do they give me this as an error? I guess I'm not sure why IntelliSense here. So it's also a preview, Visual Studio 2022, thoughtful domain models. So I'm not sure exactly. Still not. That's strange. Needs to be public. What exactly needs to be public? I guess maybe that question was maybe for a different topic that we discussed. But I'm still not getting exactly why do they throw me an error here. Is namespace, but I guess there's a typo somewhere here from my side. Author record. Yes, the record we have it here, and it is internal because it's only used internally to this assembly. So it actually doesn't need to be public. And actually, if I look here in this author module, the problem is not with the DTO. It points to the correct one. So it's You see that it's moved to features and the author folder. So this one is correct. But this is actually my domain model is a namespace, but it's used like a type. How could this be a namespace? Oh my god, I guess I know. I know. Ah, that's so bad. That's so bad. Let's call this author feature, this namespace. And then, of course, the author DTO, author feature. Yes, it's exactly. It's the namespace that has the same name as the class. That was the problem. Yeah, sorry for that. And right now it should work. Yeah, correctly. So right now we have mapped these endpoints and we have done this here. Now, okay. Here right now in register module, here is where we would add configurations that we would need to add to the web application builder or register services that are specific for this module. And unfortunately, here right now we don't have anything to do, but we'll do here something just in a few minutes when we will add the Automapper and MediatR. But for right now, actually, it works. So let's run the application, but let me put some breakpoints first, because what I want to see here, I want a breakpoint here. I want a breakpoint here. And I want a breakpoint here. It was the same name as the class because the namespaces are actually generated automatically after the folder, and the folder is named author, and our model is also named author. So it kind of didn't know exactly what to do with it. But right now we have changed the name of the namespace to be author feature. So yeah, that's how we solved it. So let's run the application once again and see if we hit those endpoints here that we have defined. So, okay. So we are here in this first one and modules count 1. So it actually worked because you see that we have our module here. So that's actually cool. And for each of our module, we call the register module. And that's it, okay. Then let's move configure application service, map endpoints. We also get into this method, which is okay. And you see that everything worked fine. And this is exactly because we have that as a static field. So once it gets those modules, it's like a global variable. This is how static works, and this is why we have to avoid static. But when we work with extension methods, then we have to define them in a static class and use static methods and things like that. So yeah, but this is actually why we should avoid use static a lot. So on the other screen, I have right now this endpoint, but Swagger, but I just want to execute it. And in fact, yes, I can see that we have arrived here. So it's actually still working fine. Good. And okay, so we have the authors. Let's then click on continue. And yeah, so everything works after this refactoring. So right now we have managed, you see here is the result. So we have managed actually to refactor everything just a little bit more and actually bring in this whole concept of modules. And where is it? So basically this means that each time we will create a new class that will inherit from iModule, we'll of course need to implement those two methods, but this means that they will automatically be registered for the services and then the endpoints with these two lines of code. So no matter how many modules you would have in this application, you don't have to add any other lines of code here in the program.cs file. So this is how, once again, we could leverage this idea of of using modules and automatically registering them to keep this program.cs file clean. Because right now, as said, once again, no matter how many modules I have in my applications, I will always, or these 2 lines of code will always be sufficient. So I won't need anything more than that. And yeah, I guess that's if there are any questions or thoughts or ideas, I don't know, just feel free to go ahead with them. And then I said that we want to actually do some further refactoring on this author module actually. And what I want to do is to move then towards this idea of using MediatR and the CQRS pattern, so working with commands and with queries. But unfortunately, nature calls, and I have to take another small break. And I will be back here as soon as possible to continue with implementing MediatR and Mapper and wiring everything up together, and then going through all the other endpoints. And I guess that this stream will be fairly long because I just want to cover a lot of other stuff here, like for the blog, as you might already see from this structure that we have here in our domain model. We would have a lot of nested resources, and then inside a module, because the cool thing about this using this idea of modules is that, do you have very simple modules like the author module where we would have a simple CRUD, then you can just simply add a very few files. You can basically even add everything in this one author module file. But if you have some more complex modules like we will have for the blog, then you could actually also introduce the concept of endpoints and then have all endpoints auto-register themselves. So yeah, we'll look into that. But as said, I have really to take a break, and I will be back, I guess, in 10 minutes at most, and then we can continue to work with that. So I hope to still see you then after the break. So I'm back again. Sorry for this interruption. Hope you can still see my screen and everything is okay. Yeah. Let's see how we move further. Let's just check if everything seems to be okay with the stream. And well, it seems it is. Okay. Yeah, seems to be fine, I guess. Good. So as said, what we want to do here is first of all move towards MediatR and Automapper. So that's exactly what we will do right now. And I guess we'll try to implement this MediatR or CQRS style here for authors, and probably that would be it for today. But we'll continue then with this series, of course, because there are a lot of other things that I would like to show you. How we could use then maybe methods and not lambda functions and other similar stuff, and how we can actually describe better to Swagger what it should display. So yeah, I'm sure that we will have at least one more stream in this series. Good. So let's get started. So we would add for this some new NuGet packages. So we would need MediatR. Okay, why? Okay, it just was a little bit slow. Now here we just installed the latest version, so this, at least for now, this doesn't have a direct dependency on the version of .NET that we're using. So that should be fine. And let's also add Automapper. But we can add actually Automapper extensions, Microsoft dependency injection, which will automatically also add the Automapper package. So let's just install that, and that should be fine. Good. So now what we have to do is, of course, add the MediatR and Automapper services. And for that, we have, of course, a global. We have this global, not global, this service collection extensions. So this is where we will add those. So what we need here is builder.services, and here let's add MediatR. Should be okay. Then of course we need to import. Let's do this in the global usings actually. Global using MediatR. Okay, and here of course is that we need to provide an assembly or an array of assemblies in which which MediatR would actually scan for classes that implements the iRequest interface and the iHandler interface. It's actually how it works, and then we just say here that type of program. So we give here this program.cs class, but why do we still have? Okay, probably okay, I don't want to add this. Maybe, I'm not sure. Do I have a typo here? That's actually strange, because I'm not sure why this is not happening here. Let's also add here. Let's try also with the Automapper. Okay, this one it sees. And Automapper, and here once again we have to provide an assembly. and it would actually look into the entire assembly where this class is, or classes that actually implement everything. So why did add Automapper work and add Mediator not work? Let's check the packages, because I knew that when we install the Automapper dependency injection package, it would automatically install also Mediator. Yeah, it installed it. But I guess we need these Automapper extensions, the global usings. I guess that is the problem. So let me go back to the global usings. How was it? Mediator. No, not pipeline. How was the package named once again? Packages. Automapper extensions. But this is for Automapper, not for Mediator. I guess we need also for Mediator a dependency injection. Okay, sorry for that. Sorry for that. Need to download the Mediator from... Yeah, I have already downloaded Mediator, but what we actually need to do is it should probably have also a package for dependency injection, because the blank Mediator probably doesn't have that. Yeah, you know, Mediator extensions, Microsoft dependency injection. It's exactly this one. And if I would have installed this one, like exactly the same way that I did for Automapper, then it would automatically install also the Mediator package and everything would have worked correctly. But once again, I was not careful enough. So I was careful for Automapper, but I was not careful for Mediator. And let's go back here to this where. Okay, add Mediator. And what is the problem right now? Using Mediator. Yeah, correct. So let's bring that to the global usings. Global using Mediator, and this time it should work. Yeah, no error anymore. So good. So that's actually what we have done here, but then I guess we don't have to add anything else. So that's actually everything that that we would need. Now let's try to move to this idea of we have here this author DTO, and I guess what we want to do here is to, well, to make a distinction between this author DTO that is actually for post, and let's create another one which would be an author get DTO. Although I guess we don't need this in this case, because for now let's just look into the author class. So for the get, we actually want to return all the information that we have here, and we want to return it exactly in the format that it is right now. So in this case, I guess we can just return it. The reason is for gets you usually also return the ID, because of course that single page applications will rely on this information to then get information about this specific author only, or use it as a query param or things like that. So for gets we really want to also give that ID, but for posts, what we have here in this author DTO, we actually don't need to do that. So yeah, that should actually be okay. But what we would need to do here is, let's create a profile for Automapper for author, because we want to map from author DTO to an author. So yeah, this is why we need to create this profile. So let's add a new class. This is a very standard configuration for Automapper, and let's name this author profile, and it would inherit from profile. And here it doesn't see it. Let's add also Automapper to the global usings. Global using Automapper. I'm not sure that it's okay to add everything here to the global usings, but I really like this feature. So this is why I tend to add everything that I can here in these global usings, because I find this cool. Okay, so where is the profile? Here is the profile. And here what we actually need is a constructor, and in the constructor we need this create map. And here we have to specify the source and the destination. So we want from the source, the source would be the author DTO, because this is what we want to do, is transform this author DTO into an author. To API features, okay, this is where the DTO resides, and this once again, I guess I have to add it manually using thoughtful domain model. Okay, but it's the same problem as previously. We have to rename this namespace. And so we have created the map. Right now we don't need to do any special configurations, because in author DTO we have first name, last name, bio, and date of birth. And in the author we have first name, last name, and we have also full name, but then Automapper will skip that, date of birth, and bio. So I guess that's okay. So that's actually what we want. So we don't need to further configure this, which is actually good. But let's also use a reverse map if we ever would like to map on the reverse way, so from author to the author DTO, but for now I guess that's fairly unlikely. And yeah, this is how we created the Automapper profile, and that's it. It's really nothing more to it. We can now just simply use that. Now, right now, in order to be able to use this mapper and the handler, what we need to do is actually we need to inject them one way or the other in our module. So let's go to the module, and here what we will have here, we will need two fields for them, but in this case they won't be read-only because we cannot inject here in the constructor. So we have an IMediator, which will be the mediator, and we have an IMapper, which is actually where is it? Here, mapper. And where we can actually do that is in this method that we have register module. Because here we have the builder, and from the builder we can get the service provider, and from the service provider we can resolve the services that we actually want. So let's go back here and yeah, var provider equals builder services build service provider. So this is how we get the provider, and then as said, we can just request the services, and then it would be the mediator, and this would be equals to provider get required service, and we use the generic version of this method. So in this case, for the mediator, I want service of type mediator, and then for the mapper, provider dot get required services, and here I want an IMapper. So right now I have this this mediator and the mapper. So okay, what is the problem with this? Oh, of course, sorry, it's not here, but it's generic. We want an IMapper of that. Good. So right now we have those two services in our module. So if you want to get some services from the dependency injection container here in your module, this is one way that you can do it. So yeah, that's pretty straightforward, I would say. Just please here be attentive that at least in this setup right now, and once again, when it comes to this idea of modules, this is something that's very easy right now, but it's not something that it's totally let's say future proof in real applications. Because one problem that I would say, and or a problem that I would see here, and that I haven't handled yet, but probably will do this in another stream, is that if you need scope services here, scope services actually, the problem is that they won't be disposed after the first use, because this these extensions, since they are static, here you would then register the services, but you would register them in a certain scope. You would have to use the iService scope factory and get the scope. And this means that as soon as you actually finished with that scope and you have resolved the services, then it means that, well, in that meantime, basically after that, the services will be disposed. So those would be back to null wherever we then want to use them. So yeah, injecting scope services here is actually not something that that would totally work, I guess. But we can inject, for instance, scope services here in each method. But yeah, as said, this is a point that that I still have to figure out what would be the best way to handle it. But transient services and singleton services you could add without problems using this way. Good. So let's see now how we can move to use MediatR. Let's start with the create. So for that one, we actually need a command. So in this case, we need to create a create user command. So let's click add class create user command. And this is, well, very specific to how MediatR works. Actually, we have interface, which is the iRequest, and it's an iRequest of author, because this request will return an author teacher. Let's rename the namespace again, and in this case we can then just add the using, and then here we'll actually in this command we can actually just set properties for everything that we need in order to process this command in a handler. But for now, what we actually need is just the author DTO. Okay, and then let's call it author get and set. Okay, what's the problem with you? Okay, declare as nullable, but why would I want necessarily it to be nullable? Or why doesn't? Okay, let's look a little bit. What is the problem here? Okay, author DTO is less accessible than create user command, because this is public and that one is internal. So yeah, we could also make this internal, but I'm not sure if how MediatR would handle that. So in this case, we can just make this public also, and then the problem should be solved. Yeah, indeed. Okay, and then the next step is that what we need is to create a handler for that. So, and basically everything that should happen here in this handler. Now, here we can then just add a new class for the handler. Where is it? Class here, and let's name it create author command handler. And here, to make it a handler, it actually needs to implement the iRequest handler. And here actually, this is also a generic one, and we have to specify that this one is a handler for what class. In this case, it's a handler for create author command and the return type. So it would return an author. Okay. Now, here in this one, we can actually use dependency injection. So in this case, we can use private read-only thoughtful db context. Okay, and we will also need maybe the IMapper here. Probably we'll need the IMapper here and not in the module itself. In this case, private read-only IMapper mapper. So the idea is for the scope services, from my point of view here in the module itself, you should require as less services as possible, because all the services that you actually need for processing the request should be in the handler. And in that case, you can simply inject via dependency injection, which is okay. So yeah, let's go back to this command handler, and yeah, we have this this Automapper. What is the problem here? Cannot be used as a type parameter for T request in the generic type of method. Okay, there is no implicit reference. Okay, from create author command handler to MediatR request thoughtful API features author. Okay, because author feature. Once again, the problem with the namespace mostly. I guess in this case it's just lazy. Okay, and here is the let's also inject everything and thoughtful db context and IMapper mapper. So yeah, let's assign to the fields. Okay, so that would be it for the dependency injection, and then implement interface. So this would be the handle, but once again I still have this error. Create author command handler cannot be used as type parameter. Oh my god, okay. Because here we have to specify the command that we have, and the command should also be it's in the author feature, which is okay. So we actually need is there a typo somewhere? Oh, I named this create user. Why did I do this? And you didn't say anything about that. Okay. So yeah, let's rename this. Create author. Yes. Rename everything and then go to the command handler. Then this is okay. I request handler of create author command and author. What is the problem? Does not implement the interface. Okay. So let's remove this and let's try to implement it again. Okay, and now it should work. Good. So we have here this this handler, and here actually what we need to do is move all the logic actually that we have here in the module for the post. Where is the post here? We have actually to move it in our handler. So let's go to the handler, and the logic would be slightly different. So here, what we will have, the idea is that in the command, we would have all the information that we need to process. This is the whole idea of working with commands and with queries. You can put here really all the information that you need for this handler in order to handle this certain command. So what we have here is a var to add. So which user we should add, and we can use mapper already to map to an author of our domain model, and we can do this from my request.author, because there is the author DTO. So why is the problem here with this mapper? Mapper, of course, mapper.map. I guess I'm too tired. Okay, good. And right now what we could do here is then simply on the context on authors.add, and we to add. Okay, and then what we could do is simply await context.save changes async. Then we have to return an author as part of the interface. And right now, if we return this author to add, so if we return this author, it would also have the ID right now, because when we save it, it would get the ID from EF Core, actually from the database, and yeah, we should have all the information there. So this is the command handler, and it is implemented. So we can go hop over here to the module. And here, in order, here we have the mediator and the mapper. We actually don't need a mapper here, but yeah, for now we'll keep it, I guess. Okay, so in this case, what we would do here is that we would still use those two, but here in the body, we actually don't have any type of other logic. We just we just have to create the command var command equals new create author command, and then here we can just use an object initializer, I guess, and the author would be equal to the author DTO that we get from the body. So that would be okay. And then the only thing that we need to do here is var added equals mediator.send, and we send the command. And that's it. From now on, Mediator knows to find the handler actually to execute or to handle that command, and everything should be fine. It should return the user, and then what we could do here is return added, and that should be it. Actually, to make it simple and to actually not allocate a special variable, as we know that this returns exactly what we need, we can just return that, and that's it. So basically we have actually made our function here that maps to this endpoint, actually containing only 2 lines of code actually, which is fairly cool. So before we test things out, let's also implement a query. So here it would be a class. So we have we get all the authors. So get all authors. Let's use also the query that we know that it is a query. However, it still should just implement or use the interface the IRequest of, and it would actually return a list of author, I would say. And it's exactly the same thing. Let's name this once again to author feature, and then we'll be able to add the using at the top. And in fact, for this query, we actually don't need to pass any information to it, so we can have it empty. But the idea is that the handler should know what to do. Here you could pass in, for instance, some filtering options that you take from query params, like, I don't know, if you want only certain authors filtered by first name, or if you want to order them, or if you want paging. So all this information would need to be written here in this query as properties, so that we would have everything available in the handler to handle that specific query. Now, in this case, it's just very simple because we just return the list of all authors for now. So we don't actually need to implement anything here. But what we would need to do here is implement the handler for this, and get all authors handler. And let's rename also the namespace here. Once again, we make this as handler by specifying that it is an IRequest handler, and they said this is generic. First, we have to specify what type of command or query we handle. In this case is get all authors query, and then what should be the response type for it. So it should be a list of author. Okay. What is the problem here right now? Guess it's something like that. But let's go to the command, I guess something. But it's IRequest handler. What did I do wrong here? I guess what I did wrong is let's go to the query once again. So get all authors query. It's an IRequest of list of author, which is okay. That's strange once again, because that's not from the data services, and MediatR, it should already have that. So what am I doing actually wrong here? That's really strange. Let's go in the command handler once again. It's exactly the same thing. IRequest handler. It's in MediatR. MediatR is already added as a global using. This is the query, which is an IRequest of list of authors. So what it should actually return. It's exactly the same that we had here. So let's check in the chat. Maybe you have some ideas, but no, I don't have. Oh my God, yes. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm definitely too tired, but I guess we just need to implement that, and then we try it out. And but here once again, we'll need to use dependency injection. Thank you very much, Wolfgang. That was actually, yeah. I was looking at it, but I was not seeing it. Good. So yeah, what we need here is a private read only. It's not an I. What do I need here is the thoughtful DB context. We need to add the using for that. And I guess that's actually everything that we would actually need here in this one. We don't need anything else like the mapper, because we don't need to map anything. Good, so let's also inject this here and assign it. Okay. And actually here that's very easy. We just have to return wait context.authors, sorry, dot toList async. And that should be it. So that's okay. So now if we go in our module itself, we can actually replace this with return. We just MediatR.send. And as we don't need to pass any type of properties to the query, we can just say new get all author query. And that's actually it. So it sends it and it returns the result, which should actually be okay for now. Good. So right now we have implemented this whole concept of MediatR. Let's run our API again and see if it works. If it still works. I guess it should work. Do we still have breakpoints somewhere? No, it just started a little bit slow. But well, the first thing is that we still see those endpoints here, which is okay. So okay, it seems that I should have theoretically some problems with the stream. So let me please let me know if you can still hear me correctly. Okay, let's first run a get, because that should already work. Okay, what's happening here? Do we have an exception? No, we don't. So what happens here? My Swagger got let's try to refresh that. Okay, so something happened here. Let's run it again. That was not a good sign. So let's just try again then. And hope for the best. No, it's still freezes, and I really don't get exactly why. We don't have any exceptions here. So from this point of view, everything seems to work fine. We maybe have a breakpoint somewhere that we have forget to remove, so we don't have a breakpoint here. We don't have a breakpoint here anymore. We also don't have a breakpoint here. So yeah, I'm not sure what it's just freezing, so I'm not sure what exactly happened with add async in front of handler implementation. Was that not added by default? Okay, I know what you mean. Oh my god, yeah. That is the problem, because MediatR is async, and actually all our handlers are async. Thank you very much. Good catch. We were just waiting and waiting and waiting, and we were just returning a task to Swagger. Of course, that was not funny at all. Okay, one more try. At least it gets further. Try it out. Execute. And we get the author. So this one worked correctly. Now let's also try the post. Let's try it out. Let's make this time Jane Doe public async task handle. Yeah, the handlers were already async. The problem is that we were not awaiting them in our endpoint methods. That was actually the problem. The handler methods are already async. So we have created the author and we see that it's Jane Doe, which is correct, with ID 2. And let's also run this list again, and we see that right now we have 2 authors. So Gabriel, let's look into this. So the handlers were already async, and we were already awaiting the context. So at least for this command, but also for this one, we were already awaiting here. So the handle was already async, so that was not the problem. The problem was that we also had to await this here. So we need to await this before we return, because otherwise we would just we were just returning a task to Swagger, and it basically we never know when the task completed and things like that. So the problem was that we need to add the await keyword here, because when we run MediatR send, that's actually here an asynchronously send a request to a single handler. So the problem was this await that was actually missing. In all the handlers, everything was okay. Good. So I guess that's we should call it a day for today, but we'll surely continue this live stream as soon as possible. Not sure, probably Sunday evening would be something, or Monday, but I'll try to do it for Sunday evening, because there's a lot of things that I want to do. I want to look at endpoint metadata. I want to look at replacing actually this here with methods, so that we can just run a method here, not write here the entire anonymous method. And then we would also have to look into how we can handle a more complex module, like the blog module, in which we would have also to introduce the idea of endpoints. So for each endpoint, we would have a different class that would automatically register all the endpoints that it actually needs. Like for instance, this map get and map post. This won't be part of the module itself, but it would actually be deferred to the endpoint to do the registration. So our module would kind of like be something like a dispatcher, and say to each endpoint in the module, hey, please register your endpoints here. And yeah, and we'll move the entire logic then in each endpoint implementation. We'll look into, well, how we can describe better how we can describe better each endpoint with metadata that actually Swagger can use in order to draw the UI. So yeah, I guess that's plenty of things that we still want to do here with this API, and look also at how we handle nested resources and similar stuff. But one other thing, or as a summary, once again, the most important thing when working with minimal API, just always try to clean this program.cs file as clean as possible. So you see that even after all this code that we have written, our program.cs has still 11 lines of code. And no matter how many modules we will add here in our applications, it will still have 11 lines of code, which is, from my point of view, very, very, very important. And try to move code into as many classes as possible to keep everything clean, readable, and easy to maintain. But that's the whole idea of this vertical slice. Is like author in this case is a vertical slice. So in this one we contain all the classes that we need. We have the DTO, we have the mapper profile, we have the queries, the commands, and the handlers. So whenever you might have a bug, for instance, that I don't know, something doesn't return right, then you can actually simply just come here and you know that the problem should be here somewhere. So it's actually very, very easy to pinpoint or to troubleshoot or debug problems with this type of architecture. And by moving a lot of the logic that we have for processing the data in the handlers, we actually, what we have achieved is that we can get rid of actually two layers, like the repositories. We don't need repositories anymore here for this one, and the services layer. We don't need services anymore, because what a service does here is actually only here in this handler. Basically, if we wouldn't have this handler, all this method here and this method here would actually be in an author service, and we would end up having an author service class with 1,000 lines of code when we implement everything, where it would be very difficult to find something if needed. But in this case, in each handler, we actually execute only the logic that we need. Now, each handler can then evolve independently. It doesn't depend on anything else. We don't depend anymore on a lot of abstractions, which is actually something good. I know that theoretically and also practically in the normal layered architecture, abstractions are very, very important. But using this type of setup with vertical slices, you actually don't depend on things. The only thing that you depend is the database, and then probably your domain layer, and that's it. And everything you put in the domain layer can easily be unit tested, so you don't have to run integration tests on that. So of course, then you would also don't need to use a lot of different type of abstractions between layers. So overall, it gets really more simple from my point of view, and it is easier to understand, and of course to maintain everything. Because if you have big services, the problem is that at a certain point you have methods that actually service several different controllers, and then in a certain controller you need a change. Then if you do a change to the method in the service, then all the other controllers break, for instance. So in that case, you then just add another method in the service, which does mostly exactly the same thing as the previous one, except that it has one less parameter, for instance. So it really gets messy with the service layer. But in this case, everything that we need is encapsulated in only one handler. So you don't depend on other methods from services. You have everything that you need here in this only one handler, and this is a very important thing from my point of view. Okay, then thank you very, very, very much for watching. It's been a 3-hour stream, so yeah, I'm glad that you were here. Also, then please subscribe to the channel if you didn't do this already, so to just keep track when we'll do the next live stream and continue to build this .NET 6 API. Thank you once again very much, and I really wish you a very good evening or day, depending on where you are. So see you next time.